Why are the Nazis and the supernatural imaginary so closely linked in popular culture? You've probably seen science fiction-y or treasure hunting portrayals of Nazis in fiction. This theme is also present in a slew of conspiracy theories which are also mostly just fiction. But the association between Hitler's Third Reich and a supernatural mythos is based on a true story. It's rooted in the strange beliefs and stories propagated by prominent Nazis. As historian Eric Kurlander notes, Nazi leaders borrowed threads from science, Norse religion and Eastern mythology and weaving together a new history for the German people, one that cast the white Aryan race as its hero. Like many conspiracy theories, these new histories were typically all-encompassing, offering an explanation for the ancient Greek belief in Atlantis and even the Buddhist heavenly land of Shambhala or Shangri-La. To better understand this story we need to go back to the turn of the 20th century. In the preceding decades, faith in traditional Christianity had fallen off in the West. Those who left the church flocked to seances and astrological fortune-tellers, seeking wisdom in alternative religious movements. In Austria and Germany, where anti-Semitism was already rampant, authors added a racial element to these new faiths, particularly in the doctrine of Ariosophy. The despair of World War I and later the Great Depression made its narrative of biological and spiritual Aryan superiority look attractive. In a cloud of German hopelessness and anti-Semitism, a group of Ariosophists founded the Thule Society. Its members believed that Atlantis or Thule was an advanced Aryan civilization that existed 2 million years ago. A powerful flood drowned the kingdom and Atlantean refugees spread across Eurasia, becoming the ancestors of modern German people. The Thule Society sought to resurrect the glory of the civilization by reviving pre-Christian Germanic religion and ridding Germany of Jews and other non-Aryans through eugenics. By organizing anti-Semitic nationalist thinkers, the Thule Society served as the scaffolding for the early Nazi Party. Kurlander writes that it's hard to imagine the development of the early party without its foundations. In fact, former Thule members Karl Harrer and Dietrich Eckart helped found the early Nazi Party. Former Thule Society members later played key roles in the Nazi Party throughout its stay in power. Rudolf Hess, who helped Hitler write Mein Kampf, served as deputy Führer. Alfred Rosenberg defined Nazi ideology in racial policy. And Hans Frank coordinated the genocide of Jews in Poland and served as Hitler's personal lawyer. But beliefs in conspiratorial or fantastical histories didn't only come from former Thule Society members. They were especially popular among the leaders of the SS, the paramilitary force that carried out the Holocaust. Its leader Heinrich Himmler had an obsession with proving this Aryan supremacist version of history. He created an SS think tank called the Ahnenerbe to do just that. Under Himmler's command, SS expeditions ventured into Iceland and Heligoland searching for evidence of the Thule Atlantis civilization. Himmler also pressed SS officers to study dubious Germanic rune symbols. In fact, the SS emblem was composed of rune symbols that the Ariosophist Guido von List said came to him in a vision. Nazi history also told a story of German victimhood at the hands of Jews and Catholics. Himmler and his colleagues oversaw the SS Witch Division, a research team which claimed that the witches persecuted in medieval times were actually the last protectors of the true Aryan pagan faith, standing boldly against the foreign religions of Judaism and Christianity. Histories like these motivated Germans to reclaim Aryan land and religion. Since the majority of the German public was still nominally Christian, leaders like Hitler, Himmler and Alfred Rosenberg tolerated Christianity during wartime but planned to dismantle the church and replace it with nationalism or a more authentic German faith. After World War II, the SS officially sponsored the Ariosophist Otto Rahn in his research on the Aryan struggle against Christianity in his book Lucifer's Court. Himmler printed thousands of copies of the book for the SS and gave one to Hitler for his birthday. They also sponsored Rahn's research on the Holy Grail, which Rahn believed actually fell from the heavens in India and granted immense power to its beholder. Depending on who was conducting the research, Nazi pseudo-history could dip into the supernatural. For instance, Himmler and colleagues like SS archivist Karl Wooligrid actually believed in Norse gods. Himmler sent this letter to the Ahnenerbe in 1940, "Find all places in the Germanic Aryan cultural world where an understanding of the lightning bolt and Thor's hammer exists. I am convinced that this is an early highly developed form of war weapon of our forefathers possessed by Asur and the gods. The desire to recover lost history was also behind the curious SS expedition to Tibet in 1938. Nazi leaders believed in a connection between the Aryan and Asian races. Some believe that after Atlantis flooded, Aryan survivors settled deep in the Himalayan mountains and built a new society. They claimed this was the origin of the Buddhist and Hindu belief in the heavenly kingdom of Shambhala. According to Himmler and like-minded Nazis, when the Aryans left to go back to Europe, they left two important marks on Asia. First, they shared their religion with the locals, forming the basis for Hinduism and Buddhism. Second, they bred with Asian people whose part-Aryan offspring became the ruling classes of India, philosophers of China and the samurai of Japan. In Nazi history, even the accomplishments and traditions of Asia were all thanks to the Aryan race. Hitler echoed these sentiments in a 1920 speech in which he claimed that the prevalence of the swastika in Eastern cultures was actually the footprint of a powerful Ice Age Aryan culture. Thus Ernest Schaeffer and several other members of the SS set off for Tibet with the dual goals of collecting scientific data and gathering evidence for this Aryan Shambhala theory. They measured the skulls of Tibetans, photographed Buddhist swastikas in search for parallels between ancient Germanic religion and Tibetan Buddhism. When we look at the Third Reich's attempts to prove that Atlantis existed or to glean wisdom from runestones, it's tempting to write them off as mere strange beliefs held by Nazi war criminals. But the convoluted racist history developed by the Nazi Party is more than a footnote on the historical record. Some justified Germany's warmongering in Europe as the reclamation of land that belonged to an old Aryan kingdom. And perhaps most importantly, the driving force behind the Holocaust was the popular belief that the German people were descendants of a superior civilization now plagued by racial impurity and Jewish greed. Hitler sold the story that blood mixture and the resultant drop in the racial level is the sole cause of the dying out of old cultures. By Nazi logic, this could be reversed to revive old cultures by means of segregation and genocide. The Third Reich shows us how history changes the way we interface with the present, but more importantly, the Nazis prove just how dangerous it can be to politicize and weaponize the past.